Good evening, everyone. This is Linda Chinya, Chair of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. We want to welcome you to this forum this evening on the communications forum. And just a reminder to participants to please mute your computers. There will be time, we will have a presentation this evening. There will be time where the board will have some conversation, and then there will also be time for public comment. I know people have signed up for that already. So without further ado, I think Dr. Santelises, did you have anything that you wanted to do to preface the presentation, or should I turn it over to Chief High Cover?
Thank you, Chair Chinya. All I would say this evening is that since her arrival in this role, in terms of leading the work from the cabinet level, the Chief High Hubbard and her team have really just brought our work a long way in this. I know that there's a cross-functional team. There are many who have been working with her on this, both as colleagues. We have school folks, school-based folks who are here today. But I do just want to point out that although we clearly are open always for feedback, always for getting better, I do just, I'm also excited to be able to turn it over and really give the board and the public a sense of where we have been making some ground, and also some, identify places where we still need to push and we still need to engage. And so that's all I will say. I will, be here if you need me, clearly. But thank you for just allowing that space. And I will either turn it back over to you or to Chief High Hubbard, whichever is your choice, ma'am.
I think Chief High Hubbard, it's all you. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I am very excited to come forward today, one, to share just some highlights of where we are with our family and community engagement work, and then to close with an outline of how we are really thinking about the revision of the family and community engagement policy. We've had one of the most fantastic policies in the country, frankly. We've had consultants in other districts coming to us asking about our policy and how it got developed, but there's always room for growth and addition. And so you will see in the beginning of the presentation and then quickly in different parts of the work that there's a need now to revise the policy to reflect the new direction of our family community engagement work. This evening, you can go to the first slide. Thank you very much. This evening, I have with me, I'll do the introduction very quickly, and then I have Shana McIver to come and talk about the family community engagement work from her perspective, her seat, the family engagement highlights, and then Monique Sims will talk about our community engagement highlights and the work we're doing there, and then last but not least, Jessica Lawrence, who's our policy specialist, will talk about policy KCA, our family community engagement policy, and the work she's doing around stakeholder engagement to prepare us for first reader submission to the board soon for our revised family community engagement policy. Go to the next slide, please. So just quickly, when I first came to the district, I asked Dr. S, what do you want to see out of our family community engagement work? And the one thing that she said that has stuck with me and has actually become the call to action for our office is to help our parents, and I'll just say families, right, become stronger partners in the academic success of their children. That is why we're here. There's nice, muffins for moms, donuts for dads, getting parents in the building. That's a great thing to do. And we want to have our parents connected to our schools. But the reason why we want them to be connected is to improve our family experience, create access points of information for their children, for their learning, so that they know what is being taught and how their role at home can support that, and believing in and caring about our families and communities. Our families and our students are our primary customers. And as such, we have to do some work both internally and with our families so we work better together and form relationships that are long lasting, that families feel welcome and trusted and valued in the work, and that our staff really understand how to connect with families in a very robust way. Next slide, please. So we did a merger of our three offices when I first came on board to create the new Office of Communications Enrollment, Engagement and Enrollment. So we have our communications team, which frankly is integral as well in making sure we have the right communication out to our families. Our enrollment choice and transfer office is now also part of this department, where they are working with families and students directly on school assignments, school choice, transfers, and making sure we provide the highest level of customer service. And then what you'll hear about tonight mostly is our engagement team's work. Again, our community engagement, our family engagement, and our policy work. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about quickly our CEO ombudsman, who also sits within our department, who is the representative for the CEO and frankly the last stop when parents have concerns about their work with the district and they haven't had an issue that's been resolved or they need to have some additional support. Karen Lawrence has been a fabulous partner as the CEO ombudsman, helping us manage that work. And she's also now working on a way for us to improve our customer service, not only from the district office, but also inside our schools directly. Next slide, please. So the mission and theory of action for our work, and I don't have to read slides. I think this is really important to sort of highlight directly. Our mission is to develop and cultivate effective school, family, and community relationships, and to leverage those relationships as key resources in the success of students and schools. And we believe the theory is we build positive, trusting relationships aligned to strategic collaborations through our blueprint, which is our wholeness, literacy, and leadership work, that it'll be engagement that is actually linked to student success. Next slide, please. So what we've adopted for this work is our dual capacity framework. This framework is created from Karen Mapp out of Harvard, and we really believe that the framework, we love the framework because it has a two-prong approach. Not only is there a framework for educators and how they engage with families and community, there's also a part of the framework that speaks directly to families. And the merger of those two, supporting our educators and supporting our families in building these relationships, is how we think this work is going to be carried forward. And so our current policy doesn't even reflect directly this dual capacity framework and this mindset of families working with educators together for success of their children. And so that's how we're going to roll out the policy revisions and really steep not only our youth engagement work, steep our partnership work, steep our community engagement work, and finally our family engagement work, all within this dual capacity framework. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Shana McIver to sort of give more specific example and more information about our family engagement work directly. Shana?
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. As Tina mentioned, I'm Shana McIver. I'm the Director of Family Engagement. I'm a native of Baltimore, a former city schools teacher, community school coordinator. Let's just say I've done this work for quite some time. So before I begin, I just have to acknowledge how proud I am of where we've come, city schools, where we've come in regards to this work. And I appreciate the diligence of my team and the commitment, as well as great leadership from Tina. So thank you, Tina. Tina's mention of the dual capacity building framework is a perfect segue for me because this allows me to provide an overview of the family engagement work and how this framework guides all that we do. You can see on the far right side of the framework, it says the goal. The outcome of all of our efforts should be partnerships that support student and school improvement. As we've reviewed and assessed our work, we thought about what's done at the district as well as school in the school building with families. We must be able to see a clear path that connects what we're doing with families to increase student and school achievement. Next slide. The very next column to the left is very important because it helps. It calls out what successful implementation looks like. The top half in the blue describes what it looks like when educators are empowered to know what to do and how to build these relationships. The information in the orange describes what it looks like for families, with families. We've been successful when you see all the school events and activities and efforts all aligned and connected to student learning and development. You'll see families as co-creators. Your teachers, your staff won't do to families, but they'll do with families. Schoolhouse will be a place where families understand that what they have is viewed as a contribution. Their knowledge is a contribution to what their students have learned, their student success rather. There will be the creation of welcoming cultures. This means welcoming, yes, in the physical sense, but in the building, but also welcoming as in open to partnering with all community stakeholders. And of course, families are included. Once you have staff who do not connect, once you have staff who do connect everything to learning and see families as co-creators and really make those strong relationships with families, then you can begin to build the capacity of families. And families start to buy in and view themselves as co-creators with schools. They support the schools, their child's success, and they encourage their children to do well in school. They monitor what their children are doing. They advocate appropriately for what their children need and model for their children what it is to be a learner. Next slide, please. As many of you know, our department and team, as Tina mentioned, has a new structure. Our work looks different, and we've developed our supports to ensure that school teams are equipped with resources, skills, the knowledge and capacity to strengthen family engagement, again, that is linked to learning. Our structure includes the following bodies of work: training and professional development for all staff and families across our organization, and it is aligned to that dual capacity building framework. Engaging our English learners and newcomer families and providing access to culturally relevant information and resources about student learning and supports in their home language. Providing enhanced supports to Title I and low-performing schools. Policy implementation and our strategy is what guides our work. Lastly, we're prioritizing high school family engagement and prioritizing targeted resources for non-Title I schools and our alternative option program schools. Within all of this, these are core focus areas that you see here that are part of our supports to schools, and it requires cross collaboration with other content offices. Yes, family engagement is the responsibility of the entire district, not just our office. So it touches every area of our organization. Our theory of action prioritizes building academic partnerships with families. So we work closely with teaching and learning to do so. Two-way communications and information sharing is a priority. So we have to partner with communications. We also partner with them around language access and interpretation and translation. Rights and responsibilities, decision-making and advocacy. With those components, while they do live in our policy and we inform those areas, our school family council work includes partnering with human capital around principal selection, school performance mandates and data, school budgets, which is led by the finance office and the school's office. Our data sharing and requirements for notifying families about high quality teaching and learning in schools, led by human capital and the Office of Achievement and Accountability. So you get it, we can't do this work alone, and we can't do it in a silo. It has to be in the fabric of what we do in city schools. So we work collaboratively with all of these teams and content offices to ensure the needs of our families are met. I know it's a lot, but this is the framing that we think is extremely important for you all as you learn more about what we do and how we do it. Next, please. Thank you. Right now, there are FCE specialists assigned to all schools. As you've learned, our work is guided by the dual capacity building framework, our FCE policy, and Title I parent and family engagement requirements. School level supports are the pillars of families and school-based staff partnering collectively for the overall success of the school and, of course, most importantly, the students. As FCE specialists, we touch targeted areas of family engagement, some that I mentioned earlier. But this graphic is a great visualization of our support. We support principals, staff, PTA, or other organized parent groups, school family councils, our FCE committees in schools, as well as FCE evaluation and assessment. All FCE specialists have access to content experts and support in our office as well, to include our policy specialists, whom you hear from a little bit later, our FCE evaluator, our bilingual and capacity building FCE specialists, which means that you receive those supports in your school community as well. Next slide, please. The role of the FCE liaison is what this graphic is about. There are 100 plus liaisons in schools to date. This individual serves as a point of contact and team member in school communities to strengthen family engagement in schools. They liaise between the schoolhouse and the rest of the community. They are responsible for assisting principals, staff, and parents and other points of contact in the schoolhouse with meeting policy requirements and federal mandates for our work. Each FCE liaison is provided with expertise as well, support and professional development from our office. They also work with parents, community school coordinators, staff, teachers, and even our school family council chairs where needed to get this work done. Most of our liaisons are teachers, volunteers, paraprofessionals, and even parent leaders. They're an awesome group of people, and we are very proud of the work that they lead in our schools and the work that they do to support family and community engagement. Next, please. Thank you. Here's my last slide. This is a brief overview of the district level family and community engagement initiative. Please note that all of what I've highlighted is driven by data and parent and family input. In the spring, we conducted family and parent listening tours across 160 schools. Also, we surveyed staff to find out what their needs were as they partnered and tried to build relationships and partnerships with families. We collected input from 17,000 families in our distance learning survey, and that information directly drives our FCE supports. Excited about the relaunch of our family university that includes workshops and PD, professional development opportunities for all stakeholders. Right now, you can access those workshops via our website or go directly to City Schools TV on YouTube. We now have dedicated supports in our schools that need the most support. Our Title I and lowest performing schools now have dedicated FCE specialists that provide direct support to school teams around our work. As a part of the policy review process, work is underway to revamp our school family council guidance and strategy for decision-making and advocacy. This started in the summer, and we've been working with a group of stakeholders to include members of the Baltimore Teachers Union, the Parent and Community Advisory Board, and Baltimore City PTA to guide our work in progress. Data has to drive what we do for family engagement. So we're working with Panorama, national experts around family and community engagement evaluation to assess parent experience in schools. One example of this is the development and launch of parent support groups, which are peer-to-peer and small group parent connections. This was prioritized. Why? Because we heard from families in our summer distance learning survey. Parents asked us for more opportunities to get support, share resources, and build community. The support groups are parent-led, cafe-style conversations that help them stay connected in their schools. Lastly, we know that parents need access to resources now more than ever to support their child's learning. So we've partnered with a few local and national partners, as well as the Teaching and Learning Office and our Student Wholeness Office to provide that for their input and expertise to provide family learning kits to Title I families this spring. So that's it for me. I'll turn it over now to my colleagues and on the community engagement side. Thank you.
Thank you, Shana, and good evening, everyone. I just want to talk a little bit about the community engagement team, and here represents our infrastructure or structure, if you will, around what we focus on in the community engagement team. You know, our focus is really enjoying relationship building and making sure our communities in our neighborhoods and our community-based organizations understand just how to collaborate with, excuse me, I'm sorry, my little one, how to collaborate with this district and schools. Okay, CJ, you cannot say hi right now. As well as making sure that, you know, we're providing these opportunities to support the positive outcomes within our students and schools. First, we have our neighborhood outreach, as well as partnerships and volunteers at our community schools. And we'll focus also on making sure our young people have a voice in decision making. Okay. Next slide, please. As we think about community schools, and I just want to say it brings me some level of emotion to talk about the work that's been happening in our community schools. When we think about what's been going on with the pandemic and just folks not being able to reach out to schools who are those hubs in the community for resources, we want to make sure that we elevate and celebrate what's happening within our schools where those community school coordinators are doing so much to prevent or reduce the barriers to access to education for our young people. They're the ones who are supporting those wraparound services being provided. And now thinking about where we are, we're at about 128 community schools. 84 of them are in linkages with our community-based organizations, and 44 of which are supported by the district as a lead agency. When we think about maybe just 2 years ago, we were at only about 50 community schools, and so now to know that that number has reached this level, we're really excited about to be able to share those resources through the community schools in this way. On the right-hand side here, you're going to see a little bit more about what the community school resources are and what they're providing in schools. Okay, one moment. Particularly, we're thinking about the resources as it relates to technology. And so many of our community school coordinators have been able to support providing those resources into the community, supporting with distribution of Chromebooks, and making sure that our young people have access to the technology to access their learning. In addition, when we think about the basic need supports, including food access, personal care items, our community school coordinators are out in the community delivering these items. They're being at the school. They're hosting those food pantries. They're just being available to provide whatever needs that are coming through. In particular, they're also gathering data and research from communities, doing their own needs assessments to understand what is needed in order to make sure that we're strategically aligning resources to family needs. Next slide, please. In addition, as we talk about partnerships and volunteers, our partnership strategy allows us to align resources strategically for district and school priorities. First, we want to think about the focus area around resource mapping, as well as our matching exercise. I'm excited to talk about the Partners in Education portal. So for the first time, we're able to establish the central hub for resource and information sharing. And so our PI portal allows what happens in the school community with the needs assessments to actually be elevated and publicly facing, in terms of being able to identify what those needs are and have them identified for all to see. So our Partners in Education portal is a place where we are moving from individualized databases for resources to put them in one central place, which also allows our partners to understand where they can plug in to strategically support schools. So this portal is now online. We launched this in the spring, and so I've been able to, through this initiative, we've garnered about 230 partners who have specifically been identified to support these needs that have been recorded by our schools. And we're really excited about seeing how at least 30% of these are from nonprofit organizations. About 16% are in the healthcare industry, which you would imagine are supporting these healthcare needs that we have right now. So it's really exciting to be able to do that work. In addition, as we're monitoring partnerships and tracking results, it's really key that we move the partnerships not just from identifying who they are, but to also understanding what they're doing and how they're doing it to make sure that they're being effective and impactful. And so through a partnership we have with Baltimore's Promise and some other stakeholder groups, we've been able to identify a process through which we'll undergo creating a results and effectiveness framework to best establish how school community partnerships should work. What's also important in this strategy is the focus around building capacity. So as you can see, the thread of dual capacity building, we want to make sure that both our internal school staff as well as our external partners understand how best to work with each other. And then in part of that is honoring that this work has been going on for a very long time, but we also want to make sure that we're strengthening each other's capacity to really work effectively together. In particular, we want to celebrate the collaborations that are already underway, and then making sure that we're creating this level of transparency and sharing so that there's always this level of two-way communication between our partners and schools. Next slide, please. And here, one initiative that we're really excited about is the expansion of our youth engagement work. We recognize that our young people have a strong voice and have ideas around what is impactful for them in their own education and their own emotional development. And so we have established a youth ambassador program where we are elevating student voice and ensuring that both school-based staff and our students are working together to move that youth voice forward. So currently we have 10 schools that have been identified with the goal of having 2 youth and 1 school liaison established to be able to have this cohort in individual schools to elevate youth voice. And the idea through this is that there will be projects or impact projects, if you will, that will be implemented that will be based on research and data that young people are pulling out from their peers to understand what's needed in their own school community. So again, we're starting the process early on for our young people to engage in their academics. So as they matriculate and move forward, they understand how to engage in that decision-making process. Within the youth engagement strategy, there are other key areas, one being an advisory council that sits in with Dr. Santelisa's, our youth advisory council. And so they're pulled from multiple schools, and they also advise on what's happening in their local schools, but also citywide. We have a strategic partnership with a number of external organizations that focus on youth engagement. And so they become the group that we also lean on for understanding how our young people are experiencing programming in school as well as outside of school. And what's been exciting is that over the spring and summer, we've enjoyed a lot of conversations with our young people through our stakeholder engagement around reopening to ensure that we understand just how they're experiencing this virtual world that we're in, and making sure that we are informed, that they're informing our process about how we move forward. All right, next slide. And so I'm going to pass it over to Jessica as she talks a little bit more about our policy review and where we're going.
Thanks, Monique. Good evening, everyone. As Chief Hike Hubbard shared, we are gearing up for a review of our policy for the first time since 2009. And all of what you heard is a really good transition into our approach to doing so. As you've learned, a lot has changed in our office and for our work. So during this process of reviewing the policy in the coming months, our goals are to inform and build awareness of all of the things that you've just heard. We have a new structure, and we want to build awareness around the multiple touch points for stakeholders to get involved and share their voice and input. Of course, we want to elevate stakeholder voice and decision making and align the policy updates to what our families need and proven strategies for effective family and community engagement. Establishing a common definition for family and community engagement is so important. We have to get on the same page about this work, and it should be clear not just to our parents and families, but for everyone across our city and at every level in our organization. And so we have to build awareness and capacity around this work. And many of our families and some staff are just not aware of the policy and also some of the new things that you've heard. So we have to change that. And so at a very high level, we hope to be able to establish the groundwork for creating the essential and organizational conditions for family and community engagement that are embraced by leadership in schools and across our district. And so building strong academic partnerships with families is what is driving everything that we do. Next slide, please. I want to touch a little bit on the current focus areas in our policy. As I shared, it was established in 2009, and I'll quickly go through this because Chief Hike Hubbard mentioned some of this, but we have a great policy. We've established and required school family councils in every school and program, principal selection and budget engagement, the way we do it, all policy mandates that are really unique to what we do here in Baltimore. Schools are engaging families around input into academic priorities through their school performance plans. We have an ombudsman where families can share their concerns and be heard at the highest level in our district. That is so important. So a lot has already been done, but we need to do more. And we know that our schools need our support, coaching, guidance, and collaboration. And many of our parents and families and staff and partners just need to know their rights and responsibilities and how to partner with us. And that's what we're doing and everything that you've just heard. So we're calling out in the process right now that there are gaps, and we're hopeful that through this review process that we can co-create the implementation strategies that reflect the unique needs of our young people, of our families, our staff, and all stakeholders. And so our work looks different, and we have a different team. We got to bring our policy up to speed with that. Next slide. And so you've heard a lot from everyone, so I won't spend a lot of time here. Everybody did a great job of really talking about where we've scaled in our work, and everything has changed a bit. And so this really is a mindset shift across our city and across our department and in our district. We have to realign our policy with all of the things that you just heard: youth engagement, building strong youth and adult partnerships, neighborhood engagement is a real thing, ensuring equity in our work, providing language access. These are just some of the recommendations that we know right now, and based on what you just heard, that we want to include in this policy as we review it. And I want to flag here that we may uncover focus areas that may not be reflected in what you see here. And that's okay. We want to go out and hear from families and staff and partners. That's why the stakeholder engagement process is so important. We have a lot of work to do. Next slide. We think it's extremely important that our policy is aligned to the district's equity work. We believe this is the most important component of the review process and where we need to improve in our current policy. And we want to ensure that we're aligning our work to that. The impact of race on educational equity and how families connect within our schools and to their children's learning experiences has to also anchor everything that we do. When we go out to hear from our families, particularly when we're engaging our students, families, and staff of color, we're going in knowing and acknowledging that there are inequitable practices, systems, and structures that have harmed our families, students, and communities. And so we're using the guiding questions for equity to apply an equity lens to everything that we do in all phases of the review process this spring. And so we understand those challenges, and we're hoping to address them in partnership and in community with our families and everyone in our city that is impacted by this work. And so early on in our planning and review of the policy, there are a few areas that I just want to quickly mention that we know we need to align to our equity policy in the review of our family and community engagement work. Our training and capacity building has to be aligned. We have to make sure that our communications tactics and engagement practices are authentic and equitable in practice. Our families aren't just families, they are co-creators, and they have assets and resources that are valuable to our district and the work of every content office. And we have to ensure that our families feel safe and welcome, and we need to be responsive to their needs. They must see themselves in our work. And so a lot of that is already captured in the dual capacity building framework as well. So we want to bring the policy up to speed with that. Next slide, please. And so in this process, there are a lot of stakeholders that are connected to our work, and we have to touch them. We refer to this graphic as our ecosystem for family and community engagement. It includes all groups. In our feedback strategy, we have to carry this message directly to these stakeholder groups. We are laser focused on reaching marginalized parents and student groups from various backgrounds and communities across our city. FCE is everyone's responsibility. That includes our neighborhood associations, students and youth organizations, community partners. I want to call out our faith-based organizations, our community schools agencies, our grassroots organizations that are on the ground, our district staff, local and national experts, principals, teachers, staff, everyone, PCAB, CCAC, needs to be at the table in this review process. Next slide. In doing so, we do understand that there may be barriers to engaging all of those groups that I just mentioned. These are challenging times for everyone. Our current climate, stakeholder preferences for reopening and experience with virtual learning. We also know that power dynamics and feelings of distrust is a real thing. We're in a pandemic, there's uncertainty. And there's a lack of capacity to be able to reach and connect with folks as we have traditionally. Normally, we'd be out on the ground and hosting meetings, but it's hard to do that at this time. And so these are barriers, but we know that we have to address them and we can't stop. So our solution is to ensure that there are multiple touch points to connect with families and stakeholders throughout this process. Next slide. And so we use the equity questions to develop our data collection and stakeholder engagement methods. We considered those challenges that I just mentioned, and I'll quickly touch on some of the things that we have planned. Some of this we've already done. We are conducting virtual stories with our schools, virtual forums, one-to-one interviews, polls and surveys, focus groups. We understand that digital organizing must be prioritized, and we also know that we have to leverage what's already happening. That means working with our partners and our faith-based organizations and grassroots folks to tap into existing networks to hear from our families. Next slide, please. In this graphic here, I'll quickly touch on is just our thinking around the policy review process and those important steps that have to occur. Shana mentioned early on that we've already heard from thousands of families, and we're leveraging that information to build out what needs to happen in terms of the review process for the policy. Stakeholder engagement and input is ongoing. There will be multiple opportunities for folks to be able to plug in and weigh in on what's happening with the policy review. Analysis and drafting, that's what we're doing right now. We're conducting an analysis of the existing stakeholder input and feedback that we have, and we're going to go out and do more. And then next, we'll have a final round of stakeholder feedback and edits after we've made revisions. We want to go back to the community and make sure that we've gotten it right, and everything that the community shared that they wanted to see and their vision for family and community engagement in Baltimore is reflected in our revised policy. And then lastly, our hope is always board approval around the revisions to this community-led process. Next slide. And then lastly, it's important for us to call out that with this policy, beyond the process that I just talked about, we know that we need to go deep in the areas around implementation and information sharing for the policy once it's approved. We plan to work collaboratively with our internal and external partners to develop a comprehensive branding and marketing campaign for this policy. We can't do it alone. And so there's a strong emphasis across our entire team, as well as in our schools, as we heard from our principals as well, that we need to make sure that everybody is clear on their roles and responsibilities, and also our supports at the district level to ensure that implementation is authentic and real for everyone. And so that is my last slide. Thank you so much.
I just want to thank the team quickly for the great presentation. And Monique, don't you worry about CJ making noise. You were at home in a virtual space, and he needs his mama in the moment. So you are totally fine. And thanks, team, for that. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to Chair Chinya for any questions or discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Ike Hubbard and staff. Thank you for the presentation. It was very comprehensive. And so at this point, I'm going to open it to board members if there are any comments or questions that you might have of the staff. Commissioner Bondima, I think I see your hand.
Yes, you do. I was reviewing. I didn't. It was hard for me to read the PowerPoint, but it was very, very interesting. And I do have some questions, but I'm wondering if it's okay for Tina Heights Chief Hubbard, if I would send some of my questions to you, because there's quite a bit of information. I want to spend some more time, even though I have it on board docs. I want to spend so much time, but it was really funny because when I saw it listed at Family University, I was real tickled to see that. But I'll wait till other people ask questions, and I may have a few later. But the presentation was excellent. So you're doing a lot of work. I'm so impressed with you. Thank you very much for all the work that you're doing in the community and with your families and students.
And we're happy to answer any questions written after you submit them. It's happy fun. And it's not the work I'm doing, it's the work the team is doing. They are doing all the work. Yes, amazing.
Exactly. Right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I see Commissioner Richardson, and then I see followed by Commissioner Sykes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for the presentation. I love the presentation. It has a lot of information in there, but I'm curious to know about for students. So I know a few students, you know, and even a lot of high schoolers as well. For some students who might go to, let's say, a school that's in 21239, but they live in 21206. What would the supports be for the different communities? Because I know that students might, you know, some students might get picked up every day by their parents or have a way home, but they just go to a different school. So what are the supports looking like for a student who might go to one school that's in this area code but lives in this area code? And then my next thing would be about the Youth Ambassadors Program. I'm really interested in hearing a little bit more about that. With the 10 schools, what schools and what grade levels are we really trying to target for the Ambassadors Program? Because I'm really interested in hearing a little bit more about that program, because I'm very interested in it.
Yep, I would ask Monique if you want to talk about the neighborhood approach and support. And if Corinne, you want to speak up about the Student Ambassador Program to answer Commissioner Sykes' question, that'd be great.
Sure.
Sure. And thank you for the question. For the neighborhood engagement, we are not bound by a particular geographic area or by a school, right? And so the idea that we have the community-based organizations that we're working with to be able to establish the neighborhood-based approach, but we also, as Shana talked about, some of the infrastructure within a school that supports the school base. And so they both work hand in hand. So when we think about the school family council, that engagement group, that liaison, that community school coordinator, while that might be connected to that particular school, then they do branch out to neighborhood. We also have the connections to our community-based organizations, those anchor institutions, our universities, our hospitals, and other spaces whereby that's where the neighborhood-based piece might go together. So it's a dual approach. And so a young person can get support at their local school, but they also could be tapping into their neighborhood-based resources to also get the same approach. And which is why we want to do that dual capacity building with our neighborhood and our school, because we want everyone to be able to say the same thing, reinforce the same language, so that young person feels a consistent or a continuum of care.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Commissioner Sykes, I would love actually for you to join us for a meeting of the ambassador program. I can definitely talk to to Rashad Staten, who I'm sure you know, to see if you can join us and learn more about the program. This time around, we have 10 schools, and actually they're primarily middle schools, and we do have a couple of high schools as well. And we're just rolling out cohort 1 right now, but the program will continue. Runs about six to 8 months, and through that they're getting training and support around doing an impact project that will reflect change that they'd like to make in their school community. So with cohort 1, I mean, I think it would be perfect if you could come and join us, and we can definitely talk through. Do you have specific questions about the program that I can answer that other people would like to hear?
First of all, thank you both, because you all just really helped me understand, and I'm excited to move this work forward. But I think my question was a little bit more towards that. I did say that it's the 10 schools, because I think that what we're talking about is elevating student voice, leadership, agency, representation. I think that is a very important part in which the biggest stakeholder within, I think, our school districts with this, which is the students. So I think that although, yes, this is like the first cohort, but I would just love to see how we can really just move once we get the first cohort started, how we can be able to move and make it from not only 10 schools to 20 schools and maybe 30 to just throughout the district, because it's a very important part in their lives and in basically their careers, which is their education at this point in time. So just basically a little bit more about how we once cohort is one out, I mean, how would it look moving forward, basically. But that's not a question that you have to answer right now, because we still have to get through cohort 1. But that's just, I did want to just make that statement that I would love to see what it will look like in the future once cohort is pushed out.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled to hear about your enthusiasm around this, and we can use your input as well. And it is our intention to have it in every school one day. I think we're starting small and seeing what we need to, what topics we need to train on, what are the best ways to engage students who have busy schedules to begin with. And then we have the added challenge of virtual, right? So, which has been interesting. We're still really excited to roll it out. And I will definitely speak with Rashad, and then we can get you to a meeting so you can dig in a little deeper.
And if I can just add to that, Commissioner Sykes, what we've just learned recently is that we have a grant from the Hewlett Foundation to actually support us in cohort 2 already. So we are designing and planning cohort 2. We'll have additional 12 schools coming on next semester at some point. I don't have the date just yet, but we'll have another whole cohort, and we're going to focus on high schools because middle schools were the predominantly participants for cohort 1, and we're going to get more high schools involved for cohort 2. So we're already on track. Hopefully by the end of this school year, we'll have 22 schools that are participating, and then we'll look to next school year to add on more cohorts. Excuse me.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
So it's a great it's a great presentation. I want to thank the staff for the time you all put into this. There are a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight for you for your consideration. I attended a December PCAB meeting, and many of the staff was there, and we were talking about your work in that meeting as well. One of the things that one of my takeaways from one of the participants in that conversation was the idea of closing the loop. So I was really excited to hear that that is a focus with your work in as you engage stakeholders, that we are closing the loop when we ask people to participate and volunteer time to help us with decision making and to provide the input and the feedback for things that you all are trying to roll out and do. Just making sure that we go back to those groups and let them know what their input, how it translated into what the implementation is going to ultimately look like. So I just wanted to flag that. I would be remiss if I didn't do that. And then I had a conversation with Commissioner Roberts. I'm not sure if she's on the call tonight, but she's flagged often that as board commissioners, we're voting on items like these big, large procurement items. And if there's a way that we could kind of allow the community and our families to know what do those votes, right? What does that procurement mean for them? In like plain language, right? So when we're voting on these $1 million procurement items to, for laptops or for Wi-Fi and all of that, letting folks know like this is what that vote means for you, I think is something that I wanted to highlight and uplift in this conversation tonight as well. But it sounds like the plan is right in keeping with both of those ideas. So I just wanted to share that.
Yep, that's fantastic. Thank you. And I think that's a good flag for the policy, is to think through how do we elevate procurement items and other district, I've talked to Chief Perkins Cohen before also about our policies as they come forward and then the implementation plan that comes afterwards. What does this actually mean for the community? So I think that goes hand in hand along with sort of the translation of policy development and what that means for next steps along with our procurement items and next steps. So I appreciate you elevating that, Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you. I see Commissioner McFadden.
Madam Chair, Dr. Brooks had his hand raised prior to me.
Okay.
Are you sure, Commissioner?
Commissioner.
Okay, so Chair Chinia, can I jump in?
Go right ahead. I was about to say Commissioner Brooks and then Commissioner McFadden.
All right, thank you so much. Happy New Year, everyone. First, I just wanted to say thank you all for an excellent presentation. I am continually impressed with the work that you are doing, Commissioner Chief Highcovered, and the team, as you always point out so graciously that the team is really supporting the efforts and moving the district forward. So I have a couple of questions. So one, there's a part of the work that I'm thinking about is, again, when we talk about families, thinking about the ways in which we capture the diversity of our families, right? And so are they LGBT families? Are they supportive? Just making sure whatever system we're using to just really try to make sure that we're capturing, because I know that there are different nuances, and particularly the context begins to shift when different families have different challenges that are coming forth. So if there's any intentional thought around sort of how do we begin to differentiate between families, I would love to hear any sort of thoughts or reflections on that. The second piece was around, as you just mentioned, around the regulations. And I know that we've been thinking about how do we begin to streamline and sort of what is essential information for those reports. And I would love to hear if you had any thoughts around sort of based on the massive amount of work that you're all doing, what might be the priority ways in which to track not only just sort of the outcomes, but the processes that sort of would give us some information to know where we might need to improve in the future or shift or move into different directions. And I think those were my only two questions, comments.
I'm going to actually invite Jessica Lawrence to come forward because she was so good on the equity portion of our presentation. I'd love her to take that question and the reg question because she is our policy specialist, and I'll back you up, Jess, if you need some help.
All right, I'll take. All right. So your first question about how are we engaging diverse stakeholder groups and what's our process? I'm so glad I have the forum to do this. In the last few years, we have been able to build authentic and strong relationships with stakeholders and advocates and grassroots organizations that are deeply embedded in our school communities and in our neighborhoods. And that has really helped to drive all of what you've heard from our team. And so in doing so, we have access to partners and organizations that are representative of the groups that you mentioned. And so we will go to them and partner with them as part of our data collection strategy and everything that we're doing to make sure that we're touching all families. One of the things that we have planned is to connect with some of our homeless shelters, some of our families that are there, and go into those places and safely try as best we can to conduct in-person sessions. We've dropped off hotspots to families that we needed to hear from this summer. So we're going to do whatever it takes to be able to hear from different voices that represent all of our families and all of the different perspectives. So thank you for that question. The next question in regards to how are we tracking and monitoring, this is huge for us this year, as Shana mentioned, and this is also reflected in the community school strategy. The community schools needs assessments, our family and community engagement school level assessments, our stakeholder engagement surveys, all of those tools are what we use to kind of like assess where we are and track our progress and making sure that we're using continuous improvement and sharing that information back with schools, posting the information on our website, using it to pivot or quickly adjust where we need to, even in real time, if we need to do something different around our work. That's how we're using those indicators. Tina, did you want to add anything about the survey work or?
Well, I would just add, I think with the regulations that Commissioner Brooks mentioned, we have to think about how we are translating. Our policies are complicated. They're long, right? And I think part of the work around being transparent and engaging with our families is thinking through, what does this mean? Like maybe that's an FYI or an FAQ on our policies when they get developed. So what is different about this maybe? And then what is it that now changes because of it? What's the activation around it? And even our reports, we're being more deliberate. And, you know, we actually have a specialist we've been using in our comms department and our family engagement department around our language that we're using, right? Because we use education speak, for example, and making sure that the language is really consumable by all families, right? So I think back to Commissioner Richardson's point about the procurement items, the regulations, the policies, we should do a better job of how people are internalizing what those things mean and how that sort of feeds into family voice at the district level. So we could be intentional about that, Jess, as we think about the policy revisions and what we plan to do in terms of in every policy you have a reporting mechanism we create there. We can think about what we put there intentionally to make sure we are thoughtful about that work.
Great, thank you so much. And I have one more small question, and it doesn't have to get answered now. One of the comments mentions survey fatigue. So I'm just curious about sort of either now or later, how do we track and monitor sort of like how much is going out per month in order to sort of manage and mitigate some of the survey fatigue?
I have a quick answer for that. So Chief Teresa Jones and I have been co-leading our stakeholder engagement work group for the district for this school year. And we are actually monitoring how we have a plan for the year, a calendar for beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year to track how many survey responses we're getting and what that looks like. And also being mindful of if other departments are doing to do surveys as well, how that all gets linked into the calendar. So we're really thoughtful about it. But I will just give you one anecdotal piece of information, and that is that our paper surveys are our ones that are longer, that get emailed out. we have a lower response rate because they're longer, right? And so our first BOY survey for families, we had like 25 or so questions. We had a response rate that was much lower than we would like to have seen happen. So we're moving that to 10 to 12 questions because we want to make it quicker and more pertinent information and really zero in on what we'd like to know from families. We also learned that our POSIP survey, which is our text message surveys tool, we had 20,000 responses. But the only thing is you could only ask 2 questions at a time. So some families were like, well, I want to say more. And other families like, I like this. I can click 1 or 2. I can click yes or no, and I can go about my business. So I think it's also having a multitude of ways that families can actually engage based on what they prefer. But we can come back to the board with data around that in terms of the numbers for the beginning of the year and middle of the year and see if our adjustments have actually had an impact.
I appreciate that, Chief High Covered, and I certainly don't want to be redundant in, just repeating things that other folks have said. But one thing that you mentioned was condensing some of the information, particularly the policy information that is going out to our families because it can be overwhelming. I think about even for us sometimes as school board members, the amount of information that we're asked to synthesize is it can be quite hefty. So that makes me think about where we are in Baltimore with nearly 30% of our population living in poverty, right? And nearly 30% of our population not having a high school diploma either, right? And there are direct correlations, to educational equity and access that I think we've got to be cognizant of when we're developing policies, we are disseminating information, when we're trying to receive information from our families and all of our stakeholders. I just think that we should be mindful of that, particularly because access to information has historically been a barrier for our families and for our community. So I just think of that. I just wanted to raise that in this work. I think that the team has done a great job in making sure that we're bringing as many voices to the table as possible as we're thinking, because our education for our young people, it's not just our young people that are involved in this process. It's families, it's parents, right? I love what we see about the Parent University and how we're educating and helping to educate our parents and families. And I think about right now, right, given where we are in COVID and the way that many of our parents are tutors, right, that they didn't necessarily go to school or go to learn how to teach students or do anything with pedagogy, but they're now having to do it because of the situation that we're in. So how do we address those needs? And it looks like we are attempting to address some of those needs with the plan and the proposal and all of the work that you all have been doing, but the work that we are now heightening as it relates to this policy. Just wanted to say that making sure that everything remains culturally relevant, right, to Baltimore City and to our families in our community, and then also to our EL population. It was really nice to hear you all talk about that, in the slides and in the presentation, because we can't lose those families, right? We're already going to experience significant learning gaps just with our young people. So thinking about the relationships that we build with our parents to make sure that they know that we're partners with them, as we're trying to grow the ability of an entire city in a very tragic and tumultuous time. So I just wanted to put that little 2 cents in. I wanted to just let you all know that, that you all are in my prayers, just like I said on Tuesday to Angela and another team. The work that you all are doing is very heavy. It's intentional though. And I think that we've got to keep our kids at the forefront and at the center of everything that we do, because that'll make the work much easier. So thank you all for everything that you're doing, to the entire team. It was great to hear from everyone, and I look forward to all of the work that comes out of everything that you all are going to be doing over the next several months in as it relates to this policy. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. Also, I just want to quickly say, if you don't mind, Madam Chair Chinia, that the work with our multilingual families is something that is really, I'm really passionate about. Our first policy doesn't even mention our multilingual families, and it's because it's about 10 years old. And if you look at the evolution of Baltimore and the cultural relevance of who is in Baltimore now and who makes our population, we have to be deliberate about this and change how we do our translations and when information gets out in real time and how we communicate to all of our audiences. So I just appreciate you elevating that and recognizing that. I want just one other quick note. The Family University is also for our staff. So families can get access to information, but it is also designed that staff can go in and take workshops on how to better engage with families. And I just elevate that because that goes back to the whole idea of the dual capacity framework. We're building the capacity of staff and families at the same time. And so I hope that staff, if they're listening, know that they have an opportunity or a resource there for them as well. But thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate that, Chief. And to also just very briefly think about what Dr. Brooks, was mentioning relative to what he was saying. I think about our parents with disabilities, right? Also, and how we're reaching them and how we're disseminating information to them as they support their young people and as they support their families and as their caregivers are also helping to support them. So I don't know, during my tenure on the board, I don't really remember us having a lot of conversation about our parents and guardians who may have disabilities who are raising their young people, and maybe the way that we disseminate information to them, is it equitable, right? Is it in a way that they will best be able to retain the information, synthesize it, and do what's best for their young people also? So yes, our our multilingual families, our language, all of that, but also our families that within them, in that makeup, there are disabilities in that makeup that I think we've got to pay attention to.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree with you with that last comment, especially looking at the multi-generational families that I think impact quite a few of our students. I'm looking around to see if I see other board members who have additional questions. I don't see other hands. Commissioner Brooks, did you still have your hand up, or is that? I lost your. I don't hear you.
You're mute. You're mute.
Okay.
See, did it? Okay, let's see if it came back in. So I was wondering, so I wrote in the chat, if our young people who were participating on the councils or this new youth development program were actually being compensated in any kind of way, sort of with dollar bills, not just sort of experience. And wondering if that's not the case, if that's a possibility for as we think about scaling the program.
Corinne, do you want to comment on that?
Sure. Yes, that's a really good question, Commissioner Brooks. And yes, with the youth ambassador program, they definitely are. We've built that into the grant and into the funding. And the way I look at it is, and having run a nonprofit, a youth leadership nonprofit, you're asking these students to learn and engage just like you would a staff member, right? And we think compensation is very, very important. So yes, they are compensated along with the liaisons. The Youth Leadership Advisory Council, I have to check on that.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but I will ask Rashad about that.
Great, thank you. Because again, I would just apply exactly what you said to that council, right? We're asking for feedback, insights. So awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Gann, I know we have folks that signed up for public comment. I'm going to turn it to you. I think if we have, I know we have quite a full slate of folks, and then if there are additional questions and we have time, but then we can come back to board members.
Okay. All right. So our first public comment is from Mr. Bruce Nelson. It's an email which I will read. Okay. Dear Board of School Commissioners, thank you for giving me an opportunity to submit written testimony in support of the District Family and Community Engagement Policy, KCRRA. The community school work supports the policy by working collaboratively with school staff, parents, and the community in creating capacity developing opportunities that increase student achievement, parent involvement, and communication. The work is anchored, supported by the School Family Council and the committees that are established by the guidance. Last year, I embarked on a journey with 79 other site specialists to aid in the implementation of the Baltimore City Public Schools expansion of community schools. As our work began on September 30th, 2019, we were asked to engage our school stakeholders about the purpose of the community school strategy and the goal for the school year. The work focused on discussing the reason for the large investment in schools and how our first year goal will be achieved. The mission of completing a robust data collection exercise that will inform the development of a needs assessment became a carefully structured process. Beginning in October, there were several opportunities provided that were supported by our principal to talk about community schools and how we would collaborate on obtaining feedback from all stakeholders that will set a direction for implementation. During my early months at Carver, I began to recognize that there were other school-wide concerns that needed my immediate attention. I worked closely with the social workers and helped with providing support for homeless families. Their relationship helped us develop a clothing closet where students could pick up school uniforms and winter garments. I became an active member of the School Family Council and participated on the Family and Community Engagement and Climate Committee. In these meetings, I began working with our administrative team, mental health clinician from the University of Maryland, and our SCL wholeness specialist in the areas of school culture and climate and parent involvement. Since that time, our work has centered on improving our attendance strategies, partnership alignment, interventions, summer SEL engagement work, and additional leadership opportunities across the school. Our partnership team meets every week, and I'm thankful for their support. I believe that the most valuable part of my role is being able to serve as a leader and be involved in many important decisions that are facing our school community. I'm humbled by the opportunity and necessity for the work to continue. Thank you for giving me a chance to share my experiences. Respectfully submitted, Bruce Nelson, Site Specialist at Carver Vocational Technical High School. Next, we have a audio recording from Ms. Teresa Feliz, which I'm going to play.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Teresa Rodriguez, and I live in Baltimore City. I have different schools where my kids attend, and I also am basically representing a community, and I've been doing some research and interviewing couple of my friends, asking them if they also have kids in Baltimore City schools, and I've been asking them like if they really feel if something needs to be changed or updated, or if there is something that they may need that they haven't had or that the school hasn't provided to them. And all of them agree that the system is doing like fine, actually. And I also have the same opinion. Like all the schools, I have I have children in Poly, in Baltimore International Academy, in the Green School, that is a charter school. And all those schools, like we can say that all the time they are kind of on track. They basically answer the messages like on time. Teachers are always on top of the classes, like, reminding us as a parent, like when a kid probably is missing a class or is not turning on the cameras or doing stuff like that, they always send us messages, also when we have like maybe an inquiry, we also email teachers and we kind of have answers promptly, and on time, basically. So far, we are doing good. I think majority of the people that has access to a device, and internet, we are doing like okay. So regarding regarding the devices, I know there are some kids that don't have internet access. That's what I've been, hearing people saying. Sometimes they don't have maybe the monetary, funds to have internet at home. I think those can be probably the only one, or maybe one of the little issues that maybe can be solved or updated, but other than that, regarding the system in general, I think we are doing good. We are doing good. Teachers are doing their job. I believe so. They are very focused on the kids and on the class, and I think we are doing okay with that. Thank you.
Lee?
Okay. Next, we have an email from Principal Amanda Rice of Hazelwood Elementary. Ms. Tania Webb is Ms. Hazelwood 2020. As our community school site specialist, she embodies the essence of communal support, partnership, and caring. Ms. Webb is a huge supporter of our families and spends her time locating and delivering supplies and other supports to them. If there's a resource out there, Ms. Webb will find it and bring it to our families. If there isn't, she'll get someone to help produce it. Ms. Webb is very driven to ensure that our students benefit from quality instruction and invest in the critical response work of providing the services our families need. On a weekly basis, she delivers food baskets and other supports to ease the burden and mental distress of the present health crisis. Due to her tireless efforts, Ms. Hazelwood now boasts of having a food pantry, and she is eagerly confirming additional donations to ensure that it is well stocked. In doing so, weekly family servings of fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as other food items, are provided. She traversed the city in search of resources for Hazelwood families and concluded the year with a grand tour giveaway to Hazelwood scholars. She is a one-woman team that gets the job done while leaving an indelible mark on the Hazelwood community. In this season of gratitude, compassion, and togetherness, we at Hazelwood are truly grateful to have Ms. Webb on our team. As you can see from this description, community schools can't happen without strong, ongoing family engagement. For this reason, community schools and community school coordinators need to be clearly included in the family engagement policy. Okay. Next. Is Ms. Latricia Melton online? Ms. Latricia Melton?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. And I'd like to thank Ms. Monique Sims for letting me know about the meeting today. I am Latricia Milton, and I am the Young Adult Services Coordinator for the Enoch Pratt Free Library. And I just wanted to come on to share some of the things that we are doing with the library and the school system that kind of speaks to a lot of the things that we just heard about. One of the things that probably most of you know about is One Book Baltimore is a partnership that we work with the schools and T. Rowe Price with the 7th and 8th graders to not only promote literacy, but also to promote community, a sense of community and conversation centered around topics that are prevalent in Baltimore City that can be brainstormed, talked through, and processed. So that's one of the things that we do with the schools. That's a very successful program. We bring in authors, well-known authors, local authors, so that the students can get the opportunity to meet people that they probably wouldn't meet if we didn't bring them in. And so that's one of the ways that we try to engage with the schools. Another thing that I wanted to bring up were we are right now working on distributing and getting out homework and research pamphlet guides, especially during this time where someone said earlier, parents are literally teaching their students in the place of teachers because we're in a virtual space. We're very limited in how we can do things. And the library thought it was important to create this handout or this booklet of databases and programming that is designed not just for the student, but for the parent to effectively assist the student outside of those school hours as well. So you'll be hearing more about that in the coming months, because we're going to try to distribute that out to some of the schools and some of the community of our other community partners that deal with young people. And I just wanted to also let you know that when it comes to the multicultural aspect of Baltimore City, we are pushing more programming that focuses on representing those voices in our communities. For example, we have started a Facebook page that is completely Spanish for our Spanish-speaking community. We've also tried to, we're pushing out more programming that is completely Spanish with a Spanish host on down to whoever we invite. And so we're doing things to assure that there is a level of identity recognition throughout our programming, that no one feels left out, that everyone can identify and see themselves in order to continue to have a positive relationship with those who use the library. I'm not sure how much time I have left, but those were a few things that I wanted to highlight.
You were right on time. Thank you, Ms. Milton.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a video from Principal Swinton of Digital Harbor. Hold on, it went away. Oh, okay.
Hello, I am Principal Swinton Buck of Digital Harbor High School. I want to share with you our commitment to family community engagement. Our primary goal this year has been to maintain connectedness with our families and partners. We began the year with several social media campaigns in order to conduct surveys and also post pertinent community information. We recognize that a lot of our stakeholders are on social media, and so why not meet them where they are? It has allowed us to engage students who we did not engage in the spring, and it also allowed us to include our partners in our virtual learning community. We have also continued to do our outreach through our wholeness partner, Concentric, who has conducted wellness checks, home visits, mentoring, and other resource support. During the holiday season, they helped us deliver meals, grocery gift cards, coats, blankets, and Wi-Fi and computer devices to our students in need. Digital Harbor is a large comprehensive high school with over 1,300 students, and it is easy to lose connection to students in the virtual space. We aim to continue to offer customized and personalized support to all 1,300 of our students through the efforts of our community site specialists, community partners, and all of our support staff. This must be prioritized at every level within our district in order to not leave our students and families behind in these trying times.
Okay, next we have Ms. Keisha Goodwin commenting live. Ms. Goodwin, are you on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
All right. Happy New Year, everyone. I am Keisha Goodwin, a parent and education representative of Frankfurt Improvement Association. As a community engaged stakeholder, I find it challenging to receive information about Title I thresholds, the qualifications, parents' rights, the liaisons, and specialists at the school and district level. This challenge also extends to scheduling school family council meetings on non-school board meeting days so that residents can attend, such as myself, the school family council meeting and then go to the school board meeting to advocate. Keeping with the school family council, Frankfurt Improvement Association was not aware of a leadership change at Vanguard Collegiate Middle School, thus was not a part of the principal selection process. This school is one of 3 traditional middle schools. It has a large ESOL population. It is a Title I school, and it also has a large disability population. As of now, this school is a convenience or last resort instead of a first or even a second choice for our 5th graders. Therefore, community participation is essential to assist with improving achievement, climate, and testing schedules. In addition, the community association should be one of the people that sign off on the school budget annually. Schools directly impact the community. Thus, we need a community local control of our schools. And that's pretty much what I have to say. If I have a little bit more time, I will also say I do not have any information on the Protect Our Schools Act. And this is a law that governs how traditional schools change to charter schools. I don't have any information on that, and nor does any of my other educational representatives that are in other community associations, so they don't know how that works. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin. And if you would like any follow-up to any of your questions, as always, feel free to reach out to the board office.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have a video from Ms. Sylvia Chicas.
Hola, my name is Silvia Chicas. I'm an instrument educator at Ball Street Academy. I have been working for Baltimore City Public Schools since 2012. I'm working with students that are learning English as a second language. However, I started supporting family community engagements since 2 years ago, working directly and collaborating with Mr. Edwin Lopez in open activities and events at the district level. Family community engagement office has been supporting Spanish-speaking families in many different ways. One of those was a first international family night. That event was a success. Our families were so happy. I think our families more active participating, collaborating, engagement in all those district events. I know that our families, they are learning all different activities and opportunities through the family and community engagement. I want to thank everybody for your hard working, especially to Mr. Lopez for all what you do to support our families. Thank you.
Okay, next we have an email from Ms. Miriam Badillo, which I'm going to find. Okay. Hello, and this is a translation. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Miriam. It is a pleasure for me to work with the Office of Family and Community Engagement. When Mr. Lopez arrived in the Latino community, it has been very important because parents have come closer to the school and the help they offer to us is done in our language. The documentation they are sending is in our language and another language, as well as Arabic, Mandarin, Spanish. And thanks to them, the schools are growing with a percentage more than a Latino parent. And I, as a parent who has 2 children, one in 6th grade and one in 5th grade, it has helped me a lot because he was able to solve some problems that exist in our school. And that is why it's important that there are more people who speak the language of each one of us. Okay, next, Ms. Shaw Nelson, speaking live. Ms. Shaw Nelson, are you on?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. So my name is Seema Shaw Nelson. I am a community school coordinator, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and 2 of my colleagues, Victoria Braithwaite and Molly McCracken, who are also community school coordinators. During the COVID pandemic, the importance and value of community schools is more evident than ever. As we have shifted to virtual learning, the community school strategy, its coordinators, and the site specialists who implement it have been integral to preserving a sense of connection in our schools and making sure that our students and families are weathering this storm. We do this first and foremost by amplifying student, family, and community voices, and by prioritizing positive and lasting relationships. We co-create spaces like parent-teacher organizations, school family councils, open forums with school leaders, and a myriad of other opportunities for family and community members to advocate for their priorities and needs. We bring in targeted resources and programming that effectively serve each school's unique needs. We highlight and build on the strengths of the communities and the neighborhoods in which we work, and build partnerships that support student achievement and family success. We work to ensure that families have their basic needs met, including stable housing, food security, mental health supports, and assistance navigating legal challenges such as custody, eviction, Social Security. The value of and need for this work has never been more palpable. Community school coordinators throughout the city serve as advocates, liaisons, and champions for our students, families, and communities. With a primary focus on elevating voices and encouraging collaborative leadership, we are helping to create the villages that are needed to help those in our communities. We cannot do this important work without authentic and robust family and community engagement. It is the very backbone of a community school and foundational to student success. It requires deep, ongoing investment and systemic and institutional support. As you will continue to evaluate what family and community engagement policy looks like in Baltimore City schools, please consider the centrality of family and community engagement in community schools and the importance of family and community voices in all levels of all school processes. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sykes, I see your hand. We have one more video, and then I think, like Commissioner Chinya said, we can go back and see if there's any follow-up board questions. The last video is from Ms. Kenya Smith.
Greetings. My name is Kenya Smith, and I am the community school coordinator at Reginald F. Lewis High School. This is my 4th school year at Reginald F. Lewis as a coordinator. In 2015, I left my career of 15 years to pursue a career that would positively support students and families. And that's exactly what I believe community school coordinators do. Student and family engagement is important because it bridges the gap and it links to resources which could lead to success. Entering the role as a first-time CSE in 2017 was a challenge. RFL was considered a CSI school that was faced with several challenges, including limited student and family engagement. So I made my goal for that school year to increase student and family engagement. With that being said, I collaborated with the Office of Engagement, specifically with FCE specialists Rashad Staten and Tanae Thrower, to host a Youth Up Next pop-up. This event included male students and male community members and professionals of color, where they participated in an all-male panel discussion. This pop-up afforded our male students an opportunity to have positive engagement with other males that look like them. I considered the Youth Up Next pop-up to be the best event of my professional school year as a first-time CSE. As a result, I collaborated with FCE specialist Tanae Thrower again. We hosted an assembly event for female students and female community members and professionals of color during Women's History Month. Since then, I've been able to continue to collaborate with the Office of Engagement. I've used their tools and practices to share to engage my school community. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak. Have a great evening.
All right, that was the end of public comment. Commissioner Chinya, back to you.
Thank you. I saw Commissioner Reed's hand up during that, and then following Commissioner Reed would be Commissioner Sykes, I believe.
Hello, everybody. Is there a forum where we we uncover best practices in terms of what's engaged in terms of the community side? I guess that's one question. And I guess another is there a way we can recognize, it may be done, and I just don't see it, but is there a way we recognize the community champions? But they talked about the lady that provided food and all that kind of stuff for the school. There are probably a lot of these people. I guess the question is how can we recognize these people? Maybe there's a forum to do that. And also, as I said earlier, maybe is there also a forum where we can learn best practices from the stars and the institutions that do a good job? Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner Reed, for that question. The communications department pre-COVID had put plans together to not only celebrate our students, a teacher of the month, and also our community champions. And then we put that on hold because we had the overwhelming amount of communication with COVID and the pandemic coming in. And so Andre Riley, Director of Communications, and I have been talking about this. He has a full communication strategy he's going to be actually unveiling quite soon. And with that will include the celebration of community champions. We hope both in our social media platforms website, but also at the board meetings, if you all choose to adopt the strategy of really highlighting and elevating both our partners and volunteers and folks who really are doing a fantastic job with supporting our families and our work. In terms of your forum, I mean, this is the kind of forum we have here, and our stakeholder engagement work is really about listening to community voice. But I want to highlight one thing that we're super excited about, and that is that every quarter from now on, we're going to have partner convenings where any partner can come from a community-based organization, a faith-based partner, a large group like a hospital or university will come and actually get quarterly updates directly from me and the team about what's going on with city schools and partnership. And then they can also elevate concerns to us. They can elevate their work to us. We're going to put spotlights on those partners as well to share examples of best practices and how they're working with schools in that space as well. We're really excited about it. Again, that was a pre-pandemic plan that we had to put on hold, but I'm pleased to mention that we actually had our first one on December 14th, and the next one will be in March. We would love to have them board and come and listen. Monique, if we can make sure we get that invitation to Christian to share with the board members, you're more than welcome to come and sit in. But again, it's about creating that transparency with the district, but also building relationship with our partners so that we're listening to them about what their concerns or thoughts are, what things they want to elevate, but we're also giving back to them information from the district.
Thank you.
Yes, and I
Commissioner
also wanted
Sykes?
to add in here, if I may, just to share a little bit about the appreciation activities that we have done for our partners that we will be rebooting and reinstituting. We had hosted a volunteer appreciation event a couple of years ago where we had nearly 200 volunteers who had been named from their schools as celebrating them and the work that they're doing. And so those kinds of things we want to reboot as we talked about now that we're kind of getting into the flow again, wanting to celebrate that. And so those community champions with the communications team will be a start, and then we'll begin to grow and build from that way, and in addition to our partnership forums that we're hosting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Sykes, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening again, everyone. I just really wanted to take the time tonight to say thank you, and that we really do appreciate all of our community site schools coordinators. They do amazing work, and I see it firsthand from someone who was recognized tonight, Miss Tanea Webb, has been an amazing person in my life who has gave me all the knowledge I know. From when I first entered Hazelwood to where I'm at today, Ms. Webb has given me so much information. She has taught me everything I know. She has instilled a lot into me. And Ms. Webb, I have seen her do it, pick up turkeys, pick up nutritious items to give out to family, do home checks, and make sure that our students and our scholars are getting all the support that they need. And I really just wanted to say that just thank you to Ms. Webb, because if it wasn't for Ms. Webb, I would not be where I'm at today. She has just put so much in me. She has given me so much. And I just want to say, Ms. Webb, that I love you from the bottom of my heart, and I really do appreciate everything you have always done for me, that you continue to do for me.
Thank you. Ms. Webb, I hope that your ears are burning. I hope that you are feeling really good. Thanks for the work that you do, and thank you, Commissioner Sykes, for recognizing this fantastic community coordinator. Okay, I'm just making certain that I'm not missing anyone as I look at my screen. If, give a little wait time here. If not, I want to thank Chief Hike Hubbard and your amazing team, first for sharing with us the work that you've done in bringing together this most crucial department that we have, one of the most crucial departments within the system. Also looking forward to continued work in updating the policy. And I know that you've given us some information about how we can participate in that. I would encourage folks to continue being a part of those sessions. If you have additional comments or recommendations, please be certain that you send that information in. That policy will be coming back to the board as we do revisions to policies. But it is very obvious from this evening that a tremendous amount of work has been taking place. We may be virtual, but that does not mean that we stopped working. And so we do want to thank you for all that has been occurring. If there are no other comments, no other questions, I'm just making sure I'm looking one last time. Okay. If not, then I'm going to say Happy New Year and thank you all for participating with us this evening for this forum. Please have a very safe evening. We do have a public board meeting on Tuesday that is coming. We look forward to you joining us at that time. And not, then this forum is adjourned. And thank you, everyone. Please be safe and remain well. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.